Namaskar and welcome. You're watching Worldview with me, Vishal Dahiya. Today we're going to talk about Operation Sindoor and the new normal set by India. With Operation Sindoor, India has made it very clear to Pakistan and the entire world that it's not going to be business as usual when it comes to fighting against terrorism. Following up on the briefings by armed forces and MEA officials, Prime Minister Narendra Modi, in his address to the nation, has clearly pointed out that the Operation Sindoor is the new normal and this operation has only been suspended after the ceasefire. While US President Donald Trump claimed credit for mediation between India and Pakistan and also linked trade angle to the ceasefire, Indian Prime Minister has debunked the claims of third-party mediation. India has also made it clear that terror cannot be overlooked for any aspect of ties. To further understand the nuances of the ceasefire between India and Pakistan and the new normal set by India in this war against terror, we are joined by two distinguished experts today. Former Ambassador Dilip Sinha and Major General retired S.V.P. Singh, who is also the ex-Additional Director General of Artillery and veteran of the 1971 Indo-Pak War, are joining us. Welcome, both of you gentlemen, to the Worldview. I'll begin with you, Ambassador Sinha, since you've handled the most important India, Pakistan, Iran desk in the MEA. You've also been, served in Indian mission in Pakistan, and of course, as India's ambassador to United Nations and other coveted positions. You very well understand the dynamics and the diplomacy angle part as well. But we'll come to that later on. The first thing which we want to understand is what do you make of the Operation Sindoor, its relevance and the achievements, the targets and the achievements?
Operation Sindoor has set, as is being called in India, a new normal. It is an announcement of a policy, which is that if there is a terror attack on Indian soil coming from Pakistan, then we will respond in kind. And when we respond, the response may not necessarily be proportionate to the attack within the country, nor would we respect the international border. Because earlier we had taken an action, for example, in the case of Balakot, we had taken retaliatory action, but we crossed the line of control. We did not cross the international border. The international border has generally been treated in a very sacrosanct manner. We had crossed it once in 1965 when we were under pressure in the Champ area. So it was a kind of a defensive, offensive measure. But in Operation Sindoor, we have laid down a doctrine that we reserve the right to strike when there is a terror attack. Now, this right to strike is a very interesting right. This right was accepted internationally after 9/11. And it was recognized that countries could strike back. And in fact, Pakistan itself has exercised this right in both Afghanistan and in Iran at terror camps inside Iran and terror camps inside Afghanistan. So Pakistan cannot deny India that same right to attack terror centers. So this is the new normal that India has set, that we what the Prime Minister called the Sindoor doctrine now, which is that if there is a terror attack, then no place in Pakistan where terrorists are hiding can be considered to be sacrosanct or safe, or even physically beyond the range of our striking capability.
Okay. Sindoor doctrine is something which we will go further deep into and try and understand what the new normal actually means and the connotations as well. But General Singh, I'd like to bring you in here. You've fought on the front in 1971. You've been an integral part there. The first and the most important question which I want to ask you is, have our armed forces achieved the targets which we set out to achieve when we embarked on Operation Sindoor on 7th May early morning?
Okay, I will just allow me to just give a little background also, that from strategic autonomy, India has gone into strategic proactive doctrine, and Sindoor has led it on to the doctrine of terrorist action as an act of war, as a right for India, and the ambassador has covered it adequately. Now, India, what it has achieved in these 72 hours, not taking away the prelude to the preparation period of this action. Well, the military objective was laid down through the Prime Minister's directive, because the state head has to give the operational directive, and that was to reduce the terrorist centers, training centers. Now, out of the 21 targets identified, 9 were definitely reduced. Now, when we say counter-terrorism, the counter-terrorism operation does not wipe out terrorism per se. I would say that this was the first step: identify and trace and partial destruction, because the next 2 steps in rooting out terrorism is the addressing the ideologues and the ideology. Now, the last one is a very long-term one, and it cannot be time-bound. So what the armed forces achieved is that they got Pakistan on its knees in the 2-3 days of fighting, which was basically a standoff action. And the first night, we achieved the thing along the border from POK right down to Bahawalpur. And a night or 2 later, we had their military air bases reduced almost to rubble. The war waging capacity of the Air Force had been reduced to 0. And Pakistan, as it is, did not have much of their logistic supply going. Now, also effective at this time was our other force multipliers like drones, which largely control the logistic supply, vehicle movement, all which has not come out loud and clear so far. So that's the way. Now, to address your question, we have achieved total success of that objective. Well, I will say 80% of it is achieved, because Pakistan has also been delivered a message that India now is in a military diplomatic cooperative state. We will deliver prohibitively, and if you raise your head, you will know what is going to happen next.
Okay. Okay. The reason why I asked that, General Singh, is because you're a veteran of 71 war yourself, and the notion or the understanding, in the general population, when do you do a comparison, because all of you are experts, you look at various angles and various aspects as well, both strategic, diplomatic, and the prelude which you're talking about, and the way forward also. But from a journal point of view, when people look at the comparison, they say 71 war ended with the surrender of Pakistani forces in East Pakistan, but this time around we agreed to a ceasefire. Is this a right comparison to make?
Firstly, I would say that comparing 1971 war, which was a classic military operation, it was a classic military conventional operation, and there we created a country and they were defeated. Now, they were defeated in a classical military conventional war, and having laid down those arms, the same parallel cannot be applied here, whereas because it's a war against terrorism, and terrorism cannot be defeated. Now, you tell me, Russia launched the invasion of Ukraine with the aim of causing military destruction of Ukraine, and what was expected in the Western world and the US in all the assessments, they will not last for more than 7 days. And look where we are.
It has been 3 years.
It's well over 3.5 years now, perhaps. So, second example is Israel versus Gaza, Hamas. Where are they? So, to expect that we're going to have Pakistan surrender, or to say Pakistan is defeated, you see, defeat of a nation also takes place. Firstly, the will of the nation is broken and they raise their hands. Or secondly is you occupy the country. We have not attempted to do that, because this operation, or India does not seek territorial extension. So it's not related to territory. And if we want Pakistan to accept defeat, Pakistan remains a nation. So I think the comparison is not a very fair comparison about it. The two are very different.
Okay, okay. That brings me back to Operation Sindoor and the Sindoor doctrine specifically. Ambassador Sinha, you're earlier talking about the new normal, and as I was also pointing out in the beginning of the show, that India seems to have set a new normal in its fight against terror. And an important element to that is that we're not saying that Operation Sindoor is over. The Prime Minister has said very clearly that it is pretty much on. It's on pause, and we will respond if anything like that again happens. So, is this a bit different from the way we've been tackling the issue of terror in the past few years as well? That includes, the surgical strike or the air strike in the earlier cases as well. Therein, we set a target, we achieved it immediately, and we said it's over. But this time around, we are saying it clearly, it is not over.
To go back to the parallel with the Bangladesh war, the Bangladesh war was a war of liberation. We had a very definite objective before us, which was to liberate Bangladesh, which we did very successfully. And in the course of that liberation, the Pakistani army surrendered. So it was a war in which we had a very definite objective, and we achieved that objective. And as soon as we achieved that objective, we unilaterally declared a ceasefire. Okay. Now, here, in the case of Operation Sindoor, we must remember that we are dealing with terrorism. Now, terrorism by definition is not carried out by the army. Terrorism is carried out by civilians who are trained by various people, either by themselves or, in the case of Pakistan, by the ISI. So these are civilians trained by the military, and then they mix among the civilians. And terrorism in Pakistan is also driven by jihadi ideology, the fanatical mindset in which a person is prepared to kill himself to cause harm to the enemy. Now, when soldiers fight, the first thing they do is try and protect themselves to ensure that their protection comes first, and killing the enemy is the main objective. Here, in the case of the terrorists, killing themselves is probably the main objective. And in the course of that, they are quite happy to kill a few innocent civilians. So we are looking at a very different kind of warfare here. Now, in the past, whenever there was a terror attack on India, India would seek to condemn it either directly, or it would have the international community condemn it. And then it would seek a dialogue with Pakistan and try and convince Pakistan that they had to take action against the terrorists, and try and, at best, keep the bilateral trade and economic relations on hold for some time. We never took military action against Pakistan for its acts of terror inside India. The first time we did that was in the case of Balakot, and that too was a very restricted. And there was another one after the other incident that took place. Both Uri and Pulwama we attacked, but they were very limited operations. This time, for the first time, we decided to strike at the headquarters of the various terror organizations. Now, we must remember that the first attack that we carried out was only against the terror bases inside Pakistan and in the occupied territories. We did not attack the military bases. And after attacking the terror camps, we gave the Pakistani army the opportunity to distance itself from the terror groups and say that, okay, India has acted, let's not escalate it any further. But Pakistan decided to escalate it, and it attacked our civilian centers. And plus, they started the shelling across the line of control. Now, it was only in response to that we started attacking the air bases and other military installations in Pakistan. And it was only after their missiles came to attack a city like Delhi, our capital, that we took the major operation of striking all their major airfields inside Pakistan. So at each stage, the escalation was done by Pakistan. Our objective in the Operation Sindoor initially essentially was just to strike at the terror bases. Now, we knew that the terrorists would not be there. All you would have would be a few people. In fact, it was a matter of good fortune that we got the family of Muhammad Asghar. I don't know why they were staying in that Bahawalpur camp. The other students and the other terrorists had already been pulled out from there. So this was essentially a message being sent to Pakistan two messages. One, that the terrorists will be attacked by us, their bases will be attacked by us, nothing is beyond our range. And the other was to give Pakistan an opportunity to distance itself from these. But the Pakistani army, instead of distancing itself, it actually went and participated in the funeral of the terrorists killed in the attack. So that re-established very visually for the whole world the linkage between the Pakistani army and the terror groups in Pakistan.
Okay, okay. Ambassador Sinha, let me take this to General Singh here. This last part which you pointed out, and something a larger question, General Singh, because we were earlier talking about the so-called comparison being made between 71 and this Operation Sindoor, and both of you gentlemen have rightly pointed out that in both cases the intent and the strategy and the timings and the issues involved and of course the way that war was fought and this operation has been carried out are entirely different. But coming to the issue of terror, General Singh, and as Ambassador Sinha is also pointing out, the very fact that Pakistani army officials were attending the funeral of a well-known terrorist who were killed in the strikes by Indian Air Force on 7th of May is a sort of an extrapolation, or rather a sort of a vindication of a fact which has been pointed out by India time and again, that the terrorists are not acting on their own. There are state actors in Pakistan, specifically the Pakistani army and the ISI, which is supporting them. And there is overwhelming evidence not only for terror attacks in India, but in other countries as well, in Afghanistan, against Indian assets, against German assets, in toppling the Afghan government as well. Well, that's the story overall. But the question here is, General Singh, that if that's the case, and which is very well established, then why stop in the tracks in punishing Pakistani army and ISI?
Now, listen, it is like this, that firstly, Pakistan involuntarily has accepted that they are supporting terrorists and terrorists are existing on their soil. The press brief of the DGISPR on the second day carried out that POK down to Bhavalpur, the terrorist camps or the camps have been attacked by Indian Air Force. It was an acceptance there are terrorists existing there. Secondly is what you have covered, this Bhavalpur case. Now, Bhavalpur case has brought it loud and clear to the world community at large that terrorists are not only being bred, but they are being part of their armed forces, the deep state ISI. Why? Because when you have their officers present at the rank of generals, the police officials also very senior, giving shoulder the coffin by the officer community indicates that there was an officer in that coffin, definitely. And so, Bahawalpur headquarters of the Corps headquarters, just 8 kilometers from the center. That means Pakistani officers were hand in glove. They were there perhaps for training, for looking after, or even it could be, since India had been building up, there were war clouds, there was fear in Pakistan, to even launch some terrorists from some place into our site. And third is that, which came up is when their foreign minister in the United Nations, he said he did not sleep for 2.5 days to address the UN Security Council resolution in which he didn't want the resistance front name to come. And he succeeded in that. So now this action of ours, the world at large, but particularly the Western countries and America, should note it and note it that India, which had been suffering for so long at the hands of terrorism and had been very dormant or semi-active, we had not actually really retaliated, except when that action took place, our army went running in a reactive manner to find the terrorists. You caught some and you did not, because the jungles and the caves which are existing in the Kashmir side are tremendously heavy and dense. Now, so this is one message, that terrorist state Pakistan has to eradicate terrorism on its own. And when I speak of terrorism, and you have mentioned about the Islamic jihadi terrorism, it is not only in this part of Pakistan, though it is the epicenter of it. Look at Africa, look at Middle East. And when we trace of whatever terrorist actions have taken place in Europe in particular, the root of it has found to be in Pakistan. So now when we did this, the world should also note that we are fighting this war on terrorism as counterterrorism on their behalf also. So it has to be a collective effort.
Okay.
If I missed out some question of yours, kindly repeat it.
No, perfectly all right, General Singh. But let's shift the focus a little bit to the diplomatic part and the ceasefire angle there as well. And Mr. Sinha, I'd like to bring you in here. The United States President, all of us are aware that he loves to hog the limelight, loves to speak in front of the cameras. This time around, as far as the ceasefire between India and Pakistan is concerned, during Operation Sindoor, US President Donald Trump seems to have jumped the gun not once but twice, and specifically claiming that it is his administration, he himself, to the core, that intervened and ensured that a ceasefire happens, and also alluded a trade angle to it. Our Prime Minister has, categorically denied such aspects. So where do we stand? Are we missing a crucial link in the entire ceasefire saga, or is it just Donald Trump being Donald Trump?
No, we are not missing any link in this saga. I think our version of the story is absolutely clear and straightforward. It is President Donald Trump, of course, he tweets all the time. And the very fact that he referred to this India-Pakistan war as a war that's been going on for 1,000 years shows how much he knows about this region. He has absolutely no clue what the India-Pakistan dispute is about, what the Kashmir issue is. He knows a little bit about trade. He has just caused a trade war in the world. Our objective in this war was to show to Pakistan that we can strike at their terror bases at any time of our desire and intent, and we can go as deep into Pakistan as we wish to, and we can carry out very precise attacks on Pakistan. And Pakistan's China-based missile defense or air defense system has full of holes, and our systems can penetrate, our missiles and our aircraft can penetrate them very easily. That has been established. Now, thereafter, Pakistan did escalate the matter, and the matter escalated a little further. Now, we had no intention of escalating it. So our original intent had already been fulfilled. We had shown to Pakistan that we had the intent and the capacity to strike deep inside its territory. Now, it was Pakistan that on the 10th, after our strikes against all the air bases inside Pakistan, that Pakistan panicked and called up the US. Now, the US then called us up, asked us to accept the ceasefire. We told the Americans that the offer of ceasefire or the plea for ceasefire must come from Pakistan directly. So it was the only point of contact that we had placed in India was the DGMO, and the Pakistani DGMO then called our DGMO and asked for a ceasefire, which our DGMO accepted on a test basis, that we would be keeping Pakistan under close observation, but we would accept the ceasefire offer. Now, when Donald Trump talks about America being involved deeply in this dispute and trying to bring about ceasefire, he has to go back and look at the statement of his own vice president.
Indeed.
Just a day previous, in which the vice president said that America had no interest in this war.
Mr. Sinha, you're right to point out that. The question here, another question arises, is what changed for America? Why was President Trump and his administration seemingly so overexcited and overzealous to protect Pakistan? Because the ceasefire has done nothing but protect Pakistan, that's all.
American policy towards Pakistan, that's another long story. But suffice it to say that America does not want Pakistan to go entirely into China's lap. So America has always, for example, America allowed the $1 billion IMF loan to be released to Pakistan. So America has been trying to ensure that Pakistan has some line open to America, does turn to America for help. And whenever Pakistan
And
turns to America for help,
sorry to butt in, but that too, IMF loan which you're talking about, that too happened during that particular period wherein the American vice president was saying that we have got nothing to do with the conflict.
yes. So as far as the vice president laid down the American policy, which was that they didn't say so in so many words, but they accept that India has the right to attack and retaliate against terror strikes. They didn't question that right of ours. And they did not appeal to the two countries to cease fire. They waited when Pakistan approached them. They said, okay, we'll help Pakistan out. They called us and we expressed our willingness, except that we laid down a condition that the request must come from Pakistan and not from the Americans. So we turned down the point of mediation, although there was, in a sense, a mediation by the Americans. But the ceasefire idea came from Pakistan and it was a bilateral request which we accept.
Okay, fair enough. I believe that pretty much clears the air on this particular issue. But before we bring this discussion to an end, let's take a quick word from the soldier himself, General Singh. What are your views on the entire ceasefire saga and, India pointing out very clearly that the Operation Sindoor and the Sindoor doctrine now is just on pause? We've not, let go of Pakistan's collar, and we're not going to do so easily.
I think India has spelled out its stance post the ceasefire announcement and the betrayal of that, breaking of it by Pakistan, by standing very loud and clear that the Operation Sindoor is on. Now, this is first point. So we have distanced ourselves from any tweet or any indulgence of the American administration in the affairs of Indo-Pak relations. Secondly, I want to bring out certain parts of it, why America has indulged. Now, I'm giving a little different point of view. Having spelled out right from the time before his presidency of 2.0, and after that within 100 days, I would bring the war to an end in Russia, Ukraine. It did not happen. The Israel-Gaza affair also bringing peace or any sort of semblance of truce has not happened. America actually does not want to be having two continents at war. Middle East, I will count in Asia, and Ukraine, Russia, Europe. So South Asia is a very important player today. And with our comprehensive strategic partnership with America, I perceive that they didn't want India to be embroiled in a full-scale war, which it could break out because of the mad people heading Pakistan. And so to that extent, our statecraft has also played up with due wisdom. And we've held back because India needs America and America needs as much this thing, notwithstanding what President Trump's changing stance, changing statements come about, like shifting sand dunes. Now, this is a very important point, So I think we have played our cards very well. But what is next? If Operation Sindoor is on, then what is next? Prime Minister has projected a very strong projection of power from the Indian side, military, diplomatic, economic. So what we should do now, my recommendations are, and I'm sure the policymakers are better judges, in the non-kinetic front, excellent. Indus waters, the three waters, control them as much as we can. Even if you reduce by 10%, Pakistan suffers. Right now, they'll be suffering from the seeding pattern of the Kharif crops. So that is one. Secondly, this was a very major non-kinetic action. The next was that we did try a bit for IMF loan not to be sanctioned. But the way it has been sanctioned, if you read between the lines, and as I read it, there is a noose around the neck of Pakistan. Firstly, of course, it will be released tidbits. And secondly, the Saudi Arabian deposits and no loans coming from China, they stand. So Pakistan is really going to be repaying some of it or most of it back to the IMF the 25th time or so. Now, other non-kinetic actions for the military, I feel our skies should be very alert. whether it is satellites, whether it's our air force, whether it's our drones, they should be alive and alert. Also, our land borders should be equally alert, if not more than the past. For that, we have to put in effect 24/7 our surveillance systems, our drones as well. Same I apply in the maritime domain, in the Saudi Arabia Sea. We must monitor and keep a check on Karachi. The maritime
Okay.
corridor and the air corridors should be proactive under surveillance. Now, what could be the kinetic actions? Kinetic actions, I will say in one word, the Prime Minister said, you do a terrorist act and it's an act of war. The ambassador has covered it. I can only cover one more point in that it is covered in the Article 51 of the UN Charter. Now, when we say terrorist act, if I may add, and I'm sure the government would be having the better view of it, even funding, indirect intelligence sharing, I would like to put it as an act of war, whether it is maritime side or whether it is aerial, the drones flying over us, or it is through land. Now, today, 3 terrorists have been killed in Shopian. Actually, it deserves an act of war. So let the government decide that.
Okay, fair enough, General Singh. You've laid down, all aspects of the future ahead, the way ahead rather, of dealing with the situation. And Ambassador Sinha, thank you very much to you as well, both of you gentlemen, for spelling out various nuances of Operation Sindoor, the ceasefire agreement, why India agreed to it. That's one part, and two, of course, the Sindoor doctrine, which is now the new normal set by India as far as dealing with the acts of terror is concerned. Once again, thank you so much. And for the viewers, keep watching Dialogus and Worldview. We'll come back again with a different aspect, different topic, and a new set of guests as well. Thank you.